Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? You ever have one of those days, or maybe one of those weeks or months? Let's go with week, where time seems to have gotten away from you, and you thought you were going to get more stuff done, you were going to get more prepared for stuff, and then you find that just time's kind of elapsed. And I'm having one of those days today, where I've got two things coming up. I have a one shot I'm going to run tomorrow, and then I have a gig that I'm going to play in Tuesday. And in both cases, I feel less prepared than I would like. The gig's a little easier because I've played with this band for several years now, and so we don't see each other all winter long. And we get together and we kind of have a couple practices, see if we remember these songs. And I'm playing Tuesday, and it's like 30 or 40 of them. I've played them a bunch of times before, but it's one of those things I like. Gee, I hope I remember where the bridge is in this song, that sort of thing. The one shot isn't a system. I'm going to be running Ubiquity again, but there's some things about the system I wish I was a little more prepared about. I think a system's okay, but it's a matter of some of the things I was going to put into the setting. A little one shot where I wish I had a little bit more time today, but we had stuff going on, and I thought I had enough time between the last few days, but I'll be okay. This video has nothing to do about with that. So anyhow, what I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about less is more, and I'm going to talk about mostly about description, and description, from the point of view of how is a game master describing things, and sometimes other players. And here's my standpoint on this. I'll hopefully link a video by Null Inquisitor I really liked. I think it's called Show Don't Tell, and that's a great video of his from probably 2-3 years ago, but just fantastic. So he probably says all this better than I'm going to, but what the heck, it's my channel. Um, we already know from psychology that if you get a bunch of people together and they all watch the same thing happen, they will all tell you something different. None of them are going to recount it or remember it in exactly the same way. And this, can happen in something that just happened. And they can ask everybody for eyewitness accounts. That's why eyewitness accounts are notoriously unreliable. Now, knowing all that, I don't believe that we should be that concerned as gamers if in this imagined space, each person is dealing with their own theater of the mind, even though it's supposed to be the shared collective narrative in this shared fictive space, and it is. But what each person sees, if we could actually hook up some kind of space-age computer to each person's head and put on a screen what they imagine things to look like, we'd all be baffled. Like, what do you mean it looks like that? What do you mean these characters look like that? What do you mean the situation looks like that? To me, as long as we all have the same basic idea, we agree on the salient points, not on what color the castle is, not on what the non-player character looks like, or on the seasons, or maybe like how far apart the moons of this world are, or little details about the scene, little nuances. As long as we have the basic ideas, we can agree on the basic salient points that are very important. I think that's all that really matters. And because of that, I find a certain level of description in a game, especially from a game master. The longer it goes on, the more intrusive it gets. And intrusive is probably the wrong word, but I think at some point it becomes unnecessary. I know there's a point where my eyes start to glaze over. Personally, there's a point where my eyes start to glaze over when I'm reading fiction, and the person becomes very, very descriptive. And this just, has nothing to do with anything except like what kind of fiction I like. And if you look around my bookcase, I like books that have a lot of action. I love young adult fiction because they're a little less descriptive. But if you asked me, I know exactly what these worlds and these situations look like. That's when, one of the reasons I watched the Narnia movies. I watched the first couple. I'm like, that's not what these people look like. I knew exactly what they look like, and I've known since I was probably 5 years old. But it was I filled in the blanks. And so I believe, when we're playing role-playing games, it's the same thing. As a game master, I try to not be too descriptive, and I, try to, I'm a little less comfortable. I'm not sure what the word is, not comfortable, but I get a little bit, maybe not even irritated. But there's a point. Okay, there's a point. When as a game master is describing things in a lot of detail, where not only are they just kind of taking all the time, and now we're just kind of listening to their story or their tale, but also it becomes somewhat intrusive. You give me the basic idea, the basic framework, my mind will fill in the blanks, and it will become rich and detailed. The fact that my rich, detailed vision of what everything looks like is not the same, as Sue's or John's that are sitting right next to me doesn't really matter as long as we agree upon the salient points. Because if we were eyewitnesses to the same event, we still wouldn't agree what it all looked like. If that makes sense. By the same token, for me, I am more comfortable with, or I kind of gravitate towards a style of play where as player characters, as players, we're not super descriptive about what our character's doing, what they're wearing, that sort of thing. I mean, yes, descriptive in terms of, yeah, go ahead and ham it up in terms of, how your character's doing something, what they say, all that kind of junk, as long as it doesn't become bad acting, which I don't like. But there's a certain, point where, once again, too much description, and when you're doing too much telling and not enough showing, it no longer does it for me. I'll figure out what your character's like. It may not match the mental picture you have of them in your head. Doesn't matter. I'll have the salient points. And in the games that I remember the most fondly that I've played in, and that I've ran as a game master, I knew what the places looked like. I knew what the people looked like. I'm sure it didn't match what the other people thought. But when we talked about the game, when we were not only playing the game, when we talked about the characters afterwards, we all agreed on the really important stuff. So I don't know if any of that made sense to you, but it makes a lot of sense to me. So to me, at the end of the day, less is more. When you're describing something as a game master, just give the really important points. Doesn't mean you have to be completely dry, but sometimes it's all about subtlety. What do you think?